speak for more than yourself.
So our vision is very long-term focused, and as you know, so much of what happens in St. Paul is very much either ignore the immediate problem or try to find a short-term solution. What will you do to try to stay focused on the long term when dealing with all the mess of the short term?
Well, you know, I'm the only person with executive experience in this race, so you've got a lot of record to look at. And 4 years ago, I got elected, and I laid out 4 key things we were going to work on. We were going to make it a safe place to call home. We were going to create jobs and opportunity. We were going to rebuild infrastructure and transportation, and we were going to focus on the next generation. We went into strategic planning with the council, which is a whole other set of issues. And we worked together on that. But out of that, we developed a strategic plan. We put it on maps around the building. We had little note cards that put it in our pocket. We then launched results-based management that had key indicators for every part of that. And we focused on that. Today, I could stand up and give you the success we've had in each of those areas. So I've shown that. That's during a time when bridges have collapsed, when economies have collapsed, and multiple other things have happened. I have stayed laser focused on our agenda because we said we were going to do it. And I'm really proud of that. I'm going to do the exact same thing at the state, but it's not going to be me alone. We'll do that strategic planning with communities and with the legislature, but then we're going to go, and we're going to stay focused on that. And I'm unique in this race. I've got a record, and the record is to stay focused on key issues.
Next question from Paul.
My name is Paul Sobosinski. I'm a crop and livestock farmer and organizer from southwestern Minnesota. I've worked on ag issues at the Minnesota legislature since the 1985 farm crisis. Over that time, I noticed at the state capitol the increasing dominance of metro-based corporate agribusiness and their allies, the commodity groups. They passed policies good for corporate agriculture, but family farmers like me have to do more for less. One bright spot has been increasing demand for food that is sustainably grown on family farms. But last session, when the overall ag budget was cut by 8% by the legislature, led by the DFL, ag chairs, along with the governor, cut key organic and sustainable ag programs over 70%. Question: what will you do as governor for the interest of family farmers before corporate agribusiness? What skills, background, and vision do you want your ag commissioner to have?
Well, I love your question, and isn't it ironic that the only person talking about a new food policy in this state is the mayor of the city of Minneapolis? But I am. And these aren't new issues to me. One of the reasons we launched Homegrown Minneapolis was because those of us in the urban area feel exactly the same way. And in this state that has been deeply disconnected, it's time to reconnect the rural economy to the urban market, and we should be in it together. Minneapolis is only here because it's surrounded by agricultural land, and we need to reconnect it. So here's what we need to do. I find it appalling that in Minnesota we import more than 90% of our food. I find it incredibly appalling that you can go into places, probably in your community, agricultural parts of the state, you can't find a grocery store with fresh produce for miles around. There's something deeply wrong with this picture, but we can fix it. So one of the things that I've done is in my work in Homegrown Minneapolis, and by the way, this has been inspired much more by much earlier advocacy by my wife, Megan O'Hara, who has been involved in this for a long time. She paints herself as no expert, but both of us are people deeply committed to this. So for instance, when you go to visit the Forsbergs in Polk County, they're third-generation dairy farmers. Their neighbors aren't doing too well, but they're doing pretty well because they are working on, they've got grass-fed beef, but they're not marketers, they don't know how to get it to a restaurant, but that's why Todd Churchill is in Cannon Falls, where he's developed Thousand Hills Meats. Anybody in this room ever had Thousand Hills Meats? Thousand Hills Meats is a middle market, okay, which is part of a new food economy. You as a family farmer, you as somebody who grows your own grass-fed beef, instead of from corporate farming, finally have that opportunity to do that. Now, a governor who gets this can really rebuild those systems throughout this state. And I get this, and not a single other person on either side is talking about these issues. And this is one of the most exciting things to me about being the governor, to finally reconnect the dots back and forth on this. Now, I'm not saying we have to reinvent the whole food economy, and agribusiness is a part of this state. That's perfectly fine. But what I'm talking about is the fact that the family farm can and should have a whole new set of opportunities. I'm going to be a governor, by the way, who's going to also protect Minnesota-owned businesses. and Minnesota-owned foods that come from here. I find it outrageous that Washington State tries to sell Honeycrisp apples in the state of Minnesota. The actual man, I am governor, okay? And that's exactly the kind of thing we need to do. Now, anybody who knows anything about farmers markets in this community knows that my wife and I spend an enormous amount of time there. We know growers around the state, and I can't wait to partner with you on finally a progressive food policy that's good for the city and the farm.
So who else will you work with and will you look to when you determine who the commissioner of ag?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't answer that on the Commissioner of Agriculture. I frankly have no idea who I would nominate as the Commissioner of Agriculture, but they need to be able to get this. That won't be decided by corporate farm interests. There are corporations that have agricultural interests in the state, and that is great. But we need a Commissioner of Ag who recognizes that you can't build a farm economy unless you fully get these issues. So I'm going to work with lots of people on it. But I already have a very, very wide network of people who I listen to on agricultural issues, but I'm only beginning to understand that whole issue. So I can't certainly name it. You're not asking me to do it either. But I can say it's not going to be, it's going to be somebody who comes out of the values that I just spoke with there.